Welcome everyone. Those of you that have been subscribed to my channel for a while know that my sewing career basically began when I started live action role-playing at the age of 15. Recently I invested a lot less of my time into my social media activities due to frustration, but that's a completely different story for another time. However, it freed up the time to go to a LARP event again, my first one after a 3-year break. To be honest, there wasn't much going on in the last 3 years anyway, but I think you get it. And this got me thinking, why do I, a 36-year-old employee with kids, why do I still go to LARPs? A hobby that is often ridiculed, which is not completely unjustified.
Lightning bolt! Lightning bolt! Lightning bolt!
Why do I do that instead of reenactment, living history, cosplay, theater, fencing, or just pen and paper RPGs? Well, let me elaborate. When I started LARP in 2001, I had already played The Dark Eye for a while, which is maybe the most popular German pen and paper system. The first Lord of the Rings movie was just released and I obviously was and am a huge Lord of the Rings fan. My first LARP character was basically a cheap Legolas ripoff. Yeah. Back in the day, LARP in Germany was rather symbolic. By that I mean we used duct tape swords and jumpers that should represent chainmail. We threw red softballs to emulate fire magic. A lot has happened to the German LARP scene and me since then. At some point I got the idea to play a knight. My first attempt was something like a Knight of the Round Table kind of thing, heavily influenced by the Warhammer fantasy universe. But then it happened. I got into a rabbit hole that actually changed my life. I started to use historical finds as inspiration. I skipped through hundreds of effigies and brasses on, well, effigiesandbrasses.com, a search engine for exactly that. And I ended up with a creative interpretation of an early 14th century Central European knight. I still owe you, I know that, I still owe you a detailed video on this gear. If you're interested, don't forget to subscribe. Anyway, years later I also based a Viking LARP character on the Skjoldahand find, and I know the Skjoldahand find is probably a Sami woman. And this is how I got into the whole historical research and making clothes game. And now we can get to the actual question. Why do I LARP? Most of my motivation is exactly what I just explained. Research and sewing. Or more generally crafting, since I also made most of my knight's armor as well as camp furniture, for example. And I love it. I consider myself a do-it-yourself kind of person and I really enjoy crafting as well as wearing what I made. Though I still want to be creative, which clashes with historical accuracy sometimes. If I can get a similar aesthetic with modern tools and techniques, I will use those modern tools and techniques. I also do LARP for the ambience, watching or even participating in a knight's tournament, for example, placing bets on the knights, hearing people cheer or gasp, and watching other people sporting their outfits. Not essential for me, but really important for other people doing LARP is solving riddles. Okay, maybe not at a tournament, but more at some kind of we need to find a special artifact kind of event, or a detective kind of thing. Acting is also not my focus, but it can be. Improvising and conveying emotion can be a huge part of LARP as a hobby. And then there is the fighting. I mean, we don't use real weapons, which is one of the reasons LARP is laughed at. But at least the armor is usually real. Still, fighting is a challenge and you can apply fencing book knowledge to LARP battles. And let's not forget the jousting. If you can think of other aspects why to do LARP, put them in the comment section. Now, a medieval tunic is a great sewing starter project. In contrast to a classic menswear waistcoat, it's a lot easier and thus less frustrating. I don't know if I would have found the patience to tailor if I had not started with easier projects in the context of LARP. It also taught me a lot about how different others perceive and treat you depending on your clothes. I learned how to lead people and speak in front of a group as a LARP night. Now, what I just showed you in this video is footage from an event called Grenzwacht by Engonien. Obviously, it's a knights tournament, and the setting is a medieval fantasy mix. In Germany, we call it Fentelalter, a combination of the terms fantasy and Middle Ages, translating to Fiddle Ages. Yeah, actually, that's a good translation. However, there are so many other LARP events, festivities at court, actual hiking, hunting monsters in the woods, big battles, you name it. And then you have LARPs in different settings. If there is a book genre, there are probably LARP events about it. Wild West, 1920s Cthulhu, Downton Abbey, Mad Max, Zombie Apocalypse, Star Wars, Pride and Prejudice, I lost count. Kudos at this point to Moritz Jendral, one of the most popular LARP photographers in Germany. Check out his website, link in the video description. LARP may seem like a childish hobby, but I actually don't care. I just love it too much. Maybe you should stop taking yourself so seriously and try it if you haven't already. Thanks at this point to Engonien who allowed me to film at their event. Maybe you will find inspiration on Moritz's website, the one we just scrolled through. Maybe you will even find an actual LARP event you want to try there. Now, do you LARP? Would you try it? Leave your thoughts in the comment section. And finally, maybe I can interest you in a video about me making a Regency / Bridgerton / Pride and Prejudice kind of outfit, or a video about my vintage workspace and the hacks I included here. Until then, bye.